Let's try this again. So, peace be with you mortals and welcome to this video. At this point in my art journey, I find myself needing to practice character creation and character design, particularly because I'm working towards creating my own webcomic and my ones just aren't like up to par as I want them to be, you know? Like, I want more detail, I want more depth. And when thinking about how to do so, I was looking for prompts to kind of trigger some ideas rather than having to do all the thinking by myself. And that's when I realised Inktober was coming up and I thought, why not just use those? Whilst also giving myself the slight excuse to be able to mindlessly scroll through Instagram, you know, looking at people's art, because of course I need a reason to do that. And the goal of Inktober is to focus on people's inking skills anyway, and considering that's a very big part of creating like mangas and webcomics, I thought the spirit of Inktober is something I definitely want to partake in. As for why I'm recording this, well, I thought it'd be fun to take a dab at video editing again. The spirit of Inktober is something I definitely want to partake in. Editing, which asked me 2 or 3 years ago and I would laugh at you, but now I find it to be entertaining. It's like, I think it's because piecing together a video these days, especially aesthetically pleasing ones, feels like I'm trying to puzzle together like an art piece, just in a different kind of medium. But yeah, as for where this will go, I don't know, but I guess enjoy the show. But before we start, I shall warn you, I am definitely not going to be following the rules in this thing. Obviously, I won't go beyond inking, particularly traditional inking. I have all my ink supplies out and ready, and I'm not going to be using anything beyond these ink supplies. But I do not expect myself to be consistent every day, particularly because that would be a failure expectation on someone who is chronically ill. I barely remember to feed myself every day. I don't think I will remember to draw every day. So I thought it would be reasonable for me to aim for 3 art videos, and so therefore 3 art attempts. And so here comes rule 1 of this challenge for myself, is that I will be doing 10 prompts in each art video / art piece. Why 10 prompts? Because that doesn't seem as challenging as 1, I get that, but I think when it gets above, say, 7 prompts, it becomes a stage where you have to kind of think and try to puzzle together each of these prompts, and I thought that would be fun because I like making things harder on myself for my entertainment. But yeah, another rule I've set myself is that each prompt has to be included, obviously, and it has to be obvious. It can't just be a small detail that you pass over in the piece. It has to be very obvious that if I told someone this is one of the prompts and they looked at the piece, they would be able to pick it up in, say, 1 or 2 seconds through a quick scan. It's not something hidden that you have to figure out and try and look with a magnifying glass to see or something. But yeah. And the third and final rule I'm setting for myself is that I have to draw a character within a scene, not just a character floating in mid-space, you know, the basics that I end up going towards, to practice more of involving characters within scenes as I need to do within webcomics. And that would also allow me to create a scene that adds depth to a character, and I thought that would be a fun thing to do. Okay, so the first 10 prompts are crystal, suit, vessel, knot, raven, spirit, fan, watch, pressure, and pick. So when I was kind of prepping for these videos, I was kind of trying to draw ideas in my head to see if this would work, and one of the ideas I had was of a scene of a girl who is a mage in practice, and using the idea of pressure and pick, she would essentially be perhaps maybe in her room or a workshop, and she's practicing for exam, or maybe she's in an exam at this stage, and part of the exam is having to pick from a set of crystals, and that may perhaps decide your future or something, and that would include pick, pressure, and crystals. And also, like, I thought as a joke to include fan would be maybe because she's under so much pressure, a fan there to help her cool down because she's under so much pressure and stress that she's visibly showing signs of it. essentially we would see her perhaps cross-legged and panicky. She'll have like a couple of crystals in front of her. So she could either be sitting on the floor with a fan kind of facing her, or the other idea was that she would be in her workroom. Then she has a bunch of crystals in front of her, and again the idea of a fan facing her and kind of like fanning her because she's so stressed and worried that she's sweating buckets. And considering this is like a webcomic thing, I was thinking to include maybe text or speech, maybe thought bubble or a speech bubble where you kind of see her panicky thoughts. Or the other idea was if she was practicing in, say, her room, we could have her like with a corner workshop studying, and then you could see like elements of her room. That in a sense would actually give us more play area. We can figure that out in a second. For now, let's start planning who this character is going to be. So the idea I had for character design is obviously to have her in a suit. If she was taking, say, a test or she was practicing for a test, I kind of feel like maybe she's a mage in training or something. That's the idea I had, and the suit would be part of her uniform. But it won't be a traditional kind of suit. Perhaps the only element of the traditional suit that I'm thinking of including is her having, say, a blazer or something. But other than that, I think I'm going to mess around with the design of the suit a bit. So first and foremost, I'm going to go with a blazer. And for some reason, I'm thinking a short arm blazer. Don't ask me why. That's the only thing in my head right now. I kind of think it'd be cute. I don't know why. I don't think I've seen a short arm blazer in real life. Or perhaps I have, I just don't remember it. I kind of like the idea of like the top row buttons being the right side overlapping with the left, and the bottom row buttons being the left overlapping with the right. I have a feeling that she's like the fashionable maid for some reason. I mean, I guess if you have a prompt like suit, you gotta go down the fashionable route. Should we give her some gloves? I mean, if she's in a workshop, I kind of feel like she'll have gloves. But what the question is, how long would these gloves be? Maybe one glove is 3/4 and one glove is not. And perhaps this texture here of the t-shirt underneath is not the traditional texture. I'm kind of like thinking like a tight fishnet. The only gloves like style I'm thinking of is of Midoriya's in Boku no Hero, where they're very like chunky and thick. If you're messing with magic, you must be protected. Oh, that means maybe she has some goggles on her head. I was thinking, why don't I put it in her hijab? Because, well, I wear her hijab, and that's kind of the main kind of characters I've been drawing for a long while, because we need more hijabi characters. So I was thinking put it in her hijab and have like a knot style. I saw a girl do this, so she put a bangle where her shoulder blade and neck meet, and what she did was thread the scarf through there, and in essence through the bangle knotted it. So the girl who I saw this scarf design from on TikTok actually placed the bangle in between her shoulder and her neck, but I think I'm going to bring it down here so you can see more of the kind of knot to make it more obvious, as according to my own specific rules that I've set myself, so someone who's just glancing upon it may be able to notice it more. I don't think this will be the only element of knots in her outfit as well. I think I might try and include more elements of knots in her outfit. Maybe in the scene around her she has more knots. And perhaps this scarf kind of comes down as longer on the other side, kind of like a cape. So she has a shorter end that she uses to knot the scarf at the front, and then the second end, the longer end, is at the back, that kind of looks like a cape for her. Which is partly why I like drawing scarves a lot, I think, because they always have that element of elegance to them. That kind of reminds me of like why I used to like drawing capes, which is like that flowy element to it. They're always fun to draw. So we have now the idea of crystal, pressure and pick within the scene. We have suit and knot within her outfit. What I also wanted to put in the outfit is the watch, but I didn't want it to be in the traditional sense, obviously, because that would be too tiny, and according to my rules, it has to be kind of more obvious. So the idea I had for a watch was actually to have it embroidered onto a suit. That way we can add some more detail, and plus I have these two ink pens, as well as a white pen, which is metallic. There's a silver and there's a gold. And I thought it would be a nice idea to kind of add a pop of colour with these, and to have like embroidery. And say if you coloured her entire suit in black ink and then filled the embroidery in, it would pop really nicely in the scene. The kind of watch I want to go for is, say, a pocket watch, but not with a traditional design, because some pocket watches that I've seen when I've searched them up have a more intriguing design where there's cutouts, there's, say, nuts and bolts in the design, kind of like a steampunkish vibe. But I kind of wanted to do it more themed towards her being like a witch. But at the same time, there's one tip that I've been given when kind of creating characters, is that you should kind of assign an aesthetic to them, which I failed to do, so I should do that now. I guess the aesthetic would be like, the aesthetic should be steampunk schoolgirl mage, which is a lot of words, but I like the idea of it. I guess like schoolgirl is kind of like implied, but the main aesthetic would be steampunk mage or steampunk witch, which fits nicely in with the idea of Inktober. Say, I was also thinking that the design of the watch could be something that signifies maybe her class or her house. I know in some like school uniforms, they'll have like specific buttons or specific colours that will signify what house or what position the students are in. Say if they're student council, they have a specific badge. So perhaps maybe the embroidery on the suit tells you what kind of position and what house she comes from, or maybe what type of mage she is. Or maybe because she hasn't figured out, like maybe the test with the crystals is to figure out what type of mage she is. So for the time being, she has a generic design. So we have like maybe a potion bottle and a crystal ball, or just general crystal behind there, resting on, say, a pillow. So the idea was of a pocket watch. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but yeah, so that rather than a traditional watch on the wrist, a pocket watch design. So the idea I have for the last 3 of the prompts is something that combines all 3 of them together, which is that she herself is a vessel of a raven spirit. Perhaps maybe in this world, animal familiars are attached to your body. And so the way I wanted to portray that was kind of like Genie in the Lamp style, where she has, say, like a squiggly little tail coming out of her that belongs to a raven. I kind of want to ensure that this raven doesn't have like sharp edges, because every time you see like with this kind of squiggly tail, a ghost or a genie, they tend to have more softer features to kind of emphasize that they're not in the same reality as the other being. I don't know how much detail I'm going to go into, perhaps maybe some feathers. So that will be all of them. We have crystals in the crystals that you see in the scene. We have suit that she's wearing, vessel in the terms of she is the vessel of the spirit. We have knot in her scarf, and I would also perhaps try and include knots elsewhere in this. Crocheting and knitting is kind of knots in a sense. Perhaps in the back she has a crocheted or knitted tapestry. Perhaps she's someone who likes to fiddle with her fingers a lot, and that's something that she created. I think that would be fun to put together now. Now it's about finalising and deciding colour placement perhaps, as well as finalising the thumbnail and then drawing it here. Okay, before I get to test inking this, I want to actually test my inks and how they react to water to see if I can perhaps dilute the ink and get a grey tone, perhaps for some shading. Right now, all I have are these micron ink pens of different various sizes, and I also have Copic multiliners, both of which are in black, and obviously with the addition of only these uniball ink pens in metallic silver, gold and just plain white. And so first I want to see is if I can get some variation out of these ink pens by diluting them with water. I was also seeing if that's the case, if I can dilute it and use it, what steps of the process would have to go first. Would I have to use the diluted ink first, or can I outline first and then use the diluted ink? So let's get to it. Okay, so I have a little Chinkrit tray, which I think I'm going to dust off a bit and try and use my brush pen to lay it on a thick layer of ink, and then add some water to it and see what I can produce. But before that, I'm going to lay down some test marks with each brand of ink pen that I have. Wait for it to dry whilst I dilute the ink and see how they will react with the diluted ink. Okay, let's see how this will react. I have my brush. Not a complete success, I think. Well, sort of. That's somewhat of a success, I think. It's not the lightest. Perhaps if I dilute it a bit more. I have to work very fast, I believe, with this if I wish to spread it out like this, so to avoid it, say, drying on me. But it works. It works. Even though I have to work a bit fast so it doesn't dry on me and leave kind of patchiness, it works. It works. The idea works. Yes, I have some variation. We shall have some contrast in this piece. Before I set that aside, I shall test. Okay, it spreads slightly, but that might be because it's not dry, because I have no patience. But I don't think that would be that much of a problem, because that's thick lines. If I try thin lines, perhaps they won't spread as much. Okay, it spreads slightly, but I haven't really given it much time to dry. That's something to keep in mind. I should be more patient, but it works. Okay, actually, let's see. Let's give it some time to dry. I'll be patient this time around. Let's give that some time to dry, and whilst that's drying, I shall actually test if these are waterproof as well. These are not waterproof. Oh, that'll be fun actually. I can mess with these inks a bit more. These will be fun to add a touch of shimmer above maybe black. I can test that out over here actually. Perhaps that will work. So I think it's been patient enough. It's been a few minutes. Let's see if it responds. Okay, so it's not as much of a response. Okay, maybe slightly. Yeah, they're not very waterproof, I think. I haven't waited more than like a minute or two, so water. I think it's maybe dulled the shimmer. So I'm going to try and, I'm just going to try and dilute the ink here. It's not very shiny, but it gives a slight shimmer. Say if I wanted a slight variation of black tone. Okay, so next let's get to actually testing the ink on the character design, and to do that I am going to first roll a kneaded eraser lightly over the character design just to erase most of the lines, but ensuring that I leave a faint outline behind to know where the lines are when I go to actually inking it. Okay, to start with, I'm going to first cover everything that needs to be covered with a light wash of diluted ink. I don't think I want it too dark, at least initially, just so I can add some more shading as well. And just in case I go too dark and you can't go backwards from too dark, but I just not really like it. Kind of using it like watercolor, I guess. Okay, so I'm gonna want some above the eyes, around the shadows of the face, the nose slightly, and a light grey wash over her scarf as well as her gloves. Darker shade down here for the inside of the scarf. And I think I'm going to actually colour the trousers in this colour and then go over it with a shimmer later on. There. I like how soft that looks right now, which is going to go completely out the window when I colour some blocks. Dark black, I think. So let's let this dry for a bit. I'm going to block in black. My brush pen is kind of weak at the moment. Oh, I forgot goggles. She was supposed to have goggles. Ah! I think I'm going to fill them in with a bit of ink first, just for the shades, and then I'll outline them. Let's see. I think before I outline the rest of it, I'm going to dilute some of the gold and use it where I want it to go before I do anything else. Yeah, I think I like that. Now, where do I want this to go? Perhaps on the trousers. I think I might actually add some to her eyes, as in she got gold eyes. Should I use this for blush? Would that work? Do I have red ink actually? Perhaps I can use some red ink. Would that work? Ooh, that might work. Just a slight blush. It might be worth it to actually add some black to this right now. trying to make a darker version of the shimmer that I've overlaid the trousers with. I'm gonna have some gold on her laces and a few diamonds and crystals, I believe. I think if I'm gonna be doing this within a scene, it might be best to keep an emblem of one, just the potion bottle, rather than the crystal in the background, just because it is getting a bit crowded with the metallics and just is blurring together, which is what I want to avoid when I'm doing the actual piece. That seems like a watch, doesn't it? kind of failed there, but I shall endeavour to do a better design on the actual final piece. And now for final outlining. Need to do better shading on her face, I think. What happened to that face? I messed up the raven. It's okay. It happens. I haven't even figured out her name yet. She should have a name, after all we are character designing. I feel like she's an Amber. I don't know why that's the only name that's sticking out in my head. Amber or Ember? You decide. What shall her name be? I failed on that hand so epically. Here we are. And that is my design. And I think I like it so far. I think the things I need to keep in mind when I actually do the bigger piece is to keep the raven grey rather than fill it in with the brush pen. To remember which way this knot goes, because I kind of lost track of where the strands and where the pleats are supposed to be headed, and so it's kind of caused a mess, but that's okay. As well as figure out how the hand is and not to make this mistake again, whatever this is. We should ignore that for now. And also to make a clearer design with the watch design, and to do that I'm going to avoid drawing the crystal that I had originally imagined to be behind the potion bottle, and instead simply have a potion as the kind of inscription on the watch embroidery. I don't know about the boots. I feel like they should be a different shape, but they're kind of both like two different shapes right now, I guess. That's probably something to keep in mind. Anyway, let's move on to a brand new page and do a final piece. Now, whilst like drawing this, I kind of come up with another idea. So we have kind of a snapshot in a room. What I was thinking was, instead of her being behind a desktop or sitting, I was thinking, what if she's actually floating and the crystals are floating around her, in essence? I should probably do a small thumbnail in the back, in the corner, just to be sure before I jump into this, but just to figure out the proportions and this design. I know which is going to be weird, because I did say I wanted to avoid the floating pose, but I kind of feel like if she's messing with these crystals, she needs to be doing more than just standing, like especially with pressure, like to show pressure, like she's attempting to actually do something with these crystals perhaps. And then the raven is coming out of the back, and maybe he is kind of giving her some advice or cheering her on, say. So that could be one of the speech bubbles that we have. Perhaps he's saying something like, just a little bit more, you've almost picked your destiny, or something like that. Instead of like a proper bedroom, what if she's kind of made a temporary bedroom in the midst of the workshop? Or maybe instead of like a proper like pillow fort that she's designed in the corner as her bed, she just has a hammock hanging on the corner. That would be hilarious. I feel like she just hung it from some of the pipes that are hanging on the wall. So she's kind of created her own kind of sleeping station, which is kind of like a pillow fort. So say she has like blankets hanging above it and fairy lights, and she's standing before a half circle, a semicircle desk, which is covered in like test tubes and potion bottles and stuff, perhaps open books and stuff as well. So it's still kind of her bedroom, but it's more like she's turned the workshop into her bedroom, because she's just under so much pressure that she's kind of like doing all-nighters here. Like And she's kind of just accepted her fate, and she's kind of just decided that she's going to put up a hammock and kind of solidified it by adding some like string lights. Like, this is her place, like she's marked her territory, and maybe none of the teachers are bothering like stopping her because they know how stressful this exam is or something. And perhaps you can use some of the gold to add like a magic effect around her hand. So because she's floating, maybe we can have like back of the scarf kind of coming floating out like a cape in a sense. And then we have the large crystals, which I'm thinking what I'm going to actually do with the crystals is actually color the crystals in black and outline them in these uniball pens, one in each metallic and also the white. If I go with that, see, perhaps we can add some other elements to the background. Like I had the idea here that she had a knotted tapestry behind her. Instead of that, perhaps she had a knitted blanket with her, because technically knitting is like rows of knotting in a sense. So I was also thinking maybe a background design of the workshop is a watch, so it's on the wall. Anyway, I should probably start drawing this. I think her pupils are going to be completely shining one color rather than having some black detail or white detail, to kind of emphasize that she's in a state of performing some sort of power. Okay, time to attempt hands. Latin numerals, or should we have Arabic numerals actually? I think I might do Arabic numerals just for the pure sake of it. And then we'll have piping designs. Perhaps this is like an old building and they just have like evident piping because it was an old big building, perhaps transformed into a workshop. Perhaps it's a secret workshop that no one else knows of, that she's transformed in her own time and away from everyone else. Just because she's the antisocial type. Perhaps she's too introverted that she didn't make friends on the first day, and now it's too late to make friends, and now she's just like hiding in her own workshop. Perhaps there was actually a window behind this clock, but the glass had actually broken away. Rather than fixing the window, she just kind of filled in the gap with this giant watch. Because, you know, aesthetic. Also, perhaps it also has like scorch marks everywhere because she's burnt everything at this point at least once, you know? Perhaps she has like fairy lights in the shape of crystals as well. That would be interesting. I forgot the fan. Perhaps she has one here, or a giant one, because perhaps this place is just, because it's an old warehouse, it definitely does not have AC or any heating. I kind of like that. I think what I'm going to do now is lightly go over it with a kneaded eraser and kind of find the lines that I really want to keep, and then get to outlining it. But yeah, so I'm so excited. I didn't think it's going to turn out like this, but yeah, I haven't done something like this, and maybe I need to put some actually more elements. Ooh, perhaps she has like a cabinet that has like pot noodles on it. Because, you know, stressed out student, what else is she gonna eat? Coffee jug! Definitely a coffee jug. Potions. Eat a pile of books, definitely. This is definitely gonna be late, this video, but I'm just happy with the way this is going. I'm excited. Okay, now to faintly rub this out and then try and find the lines that I specifically want to keep and go over them. These are some old scrolls I thought she might have like taken out from the library and brought down to her. Or perhaps what if she found some of these scrolls within the warehouse that she's turned into her new workshop? I wonder who the warehouse used to belong to. Perhaps it used to be an old church instead of a warehouse. So perhaps someone else used this place as a workshop before her and they left their notes behind and she's using them to help improve her magic. Some crates here for which she uses to store food, which are obviously pot noodles because she's not a good cook. She needs to learn her magic, okay? That's more important for her. She'll learn to cook when it involves magic. I feel like she's a type who just like gets obsessed with one thing and everything has to relate to it, although she's not interested in it. So perhaps everything needs to relate to magic, although she's not interested in it, even though she's not very good at it, perhaps. Freehanding lines again because I'm too lazy to go get a ruler, but that's okay. It has more character. We want some flying papers as well, because the magic is definitely going to make papers go flying. I think I like how that is right now. So first and foremost, let's paint the background. I think I'm going to give the whole background a grey sheen and then add layers of grey. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry and then come back and fill in all of the blocks of black and some of the extra details. And then I will go on to doing the thin liner, because my plan is to thin liner in the background first and foremost, just to outline everything in the background and push into the background. And then slowly, by each layer of the picture, I will increase the size of my liner and try and push each layer that forward by the depth and the thickness of the lines. So say the background will be a 005. The second layer, which is kind of all the items in the background, would be say a 01, and then she herself perhaps in a 03. Okay, now let's get to blocking out the black, which is in her clothes. I forgot actually to do the lines of the floor boards, so let's actually add those. Let's colour in the crystals and then we'll outline them in gold and silver. And also white, I think, is going to go around them, just to separate them further from the background. I think I'm also going to outline her in gold and silver to kind of give the effect that she's currently being affected by her magic. So go with a deep outline of gold and then I'll add some silver stars and glitter. I think I might actually layer the background with a layer of the diluted ink just to push it further back. I'm messing this up so bad. I need to stop. Okay, I'm gonna stop touching it now. I just I don't know how I feel about this. I really don't. I like, part of me is like, oh my god, I created this, but also like my attempt was to try and differentiate like layers of the scene, so background and foreground, but I don't think I've like separated it enough. I think that's partly because each layer of liner that I used it just one size up, and I should have maybe perhaps increased 2 sizes up, but at the same time I don't know, and I don't want to keep touching it, and I don't want to keep messing it up though, but I also want to keep touching it and trying to fix it. I don't know how I feel about this. Part of me is like, oh my god, I created this, like I've not done something like this, like a detailed scene before. But another part of me is like, there's just too much in the scene. There's just too much going on, I think. It's just too busy. But I think that's something that I will try and improve on when I do the next Inktober piece, God willing. Like, I am proud, don't get me wrong. I'm proud. Like, I've not done something like this before. It looks too busy to me, I think. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this attempt. I think that's what I'm going to call it, an attempt, not a fail. I try to be more positive about my work, and there are things I am happy about. Like I don't think I would have created this like a while ago. Like this is not something that I'm used to doing. I'm used to just drawing like floaty characters in mid-space or something, or just standing there posing as if I'm taking a picture of them. And I like the way it's going. I do like the way it's going. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I am going to attempt to edit this mammoth of a beast and try not to cringe at the sound of my voice. Anyway, again, I do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you, fingers crossed, in the next video. Peace be with you, mortals. Bye for now.